I pulled into the driveway of our little house in suburban Denver, Colorado, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows across the lawn. It was my 20th birthday, and I'd spent the day at community college, juggling classes and a shift at the coffee shop. My keys jingled in my hand, my backpack heavy on one shoulder. I was tired, but ready to crash on the couch, maybe order a pizza to celebrate. Then I saw it. My entire life, scattered like garbage across the front yard. Clothes, crumpled and muddy, spilled out of torn garbage bags. My textbooks, pages flapping in the breeze, lay next to a cracked coffee mug. My laptop bag, the one I'd saved months to buy, sat slumped against the mailbox. Worst of all, the quilt my mom, Emily, had sewn for me when I was 8 bright patches of blue and yellow was tangled in a pile of socks. My underwear, of all things, dangled from the mailbox's edge, flapping like a surrender flag. I froze, my heart hammering so loud it drowned out the neighborhood's evening hum. Karen stood on the porch, arms crossed, a glass of red wine in one hand. It was barely 4 in the afternoon, but she sipped it like it was water, her eyes locked on me. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. "Happy birthday, Sophia," she said, her voice syrupy, fake. "You're 20 now. Time to grow up. Time to move on." I stood there, keys biting into my palm, my backpack slipping to the ground. "My name's Sophia," I said, barely above a whisper. It hit me then, like a punch to the gut. My dad, David, hadn't just married someone new. He'd handed over my entire world to a stranger, and she'd set it on fire. I didn't say anything at first. My legs moved on their own, slow, numb, toward the pile. Behind the screen door, I heard Mia's laugh, sharp and cruel, like she was watching a prank unfold. My eyes caught on my journal, the one with Mom's handwriting scrawled on the first page, half buried under a sticky granola bar wrapper. I knelt down, my knees sinking into the grass, and pulled it free, brushing off the dirt. My hands shook. "What the hell is this?" I said finally, my voice cracking, loud enough to cut through the quiet street. Karen shrugged, leaning against the porch railing. "House rules, sweetheart. You're not a kid anymore. We need the space." "For what?" I shouted, standing up, my journal clutched to my chest. She smiled, slow and deliberate, and took another sip of wine. "Mia's getting her own dressing room. A few other upgrades, too. You know, family priorities." I glanced up at the house, catching Ethan's face in the upstairs window. His eyes met mine for a second before he ducked behind the curtain. Typical Ethan. Always watching, never speaking. My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms. "Where's my dad?" I asked, my voice low, trembling. Karen tilted her head, like she was sizing me up. "At work. He agrees this is for the best." Her words landed like a slap. I didn't believe her, not entirely, but it wasn't a shock either. Dad hadn't looked me in the eye in months, not since Karen and her kids moved in, turning our home into their playground. I wanted to scream, to tear the porch apart, but I didn't. Karen thrived on chaos. She wanted me to break, to give her an excuse to play the victim. Instead, I grabbed my laptop bag and Mom's quilt, slinging them over my shoulder. Without a word, I turned and walked down the driveway, my sneakers crunching on the gravel. I didn't look back. Not yet. I made it 2 blocks before the tears came, hot and unstoppable, blurring the streetlights. By the time I reached the park, my legs gave out. I sank onto a bench under a massive oak tree, my hands still shaking, the quilt draped across my lap. My phone buzzed Ryan, texting about birthday cake, but I couldn't answer. I just sat there, staring at the darkening sky, trying to breathe through the weight of it all. Anger, grief, humiliation. It was too much. Then I remembered the envelope. I sat on that park bench in Denver, the oak tree's branches swaying above me, the quilt my mom made wrapped tight around my shoulders. The air was cool, carrying the faint smell of cut grass and distant barbecues. My journal lay in my lap, Mom's handwriting on the first page glinting under the streetlight. To Sophia, my light, it read, in her bold, looping script. I traced the words with my finger, my chest aching. How did it come to this? How did our home, our life, turn into a battlefield? After Mom died 2 years ago, it was just me and Dad in that little house on Maple Street. She'd fought cancer for 3 years, and when she was gone, it felt like the world cracked open. Dad and I were broken, but we held on. We had routines. He'd cook pancakes on Sundays, burning half of them, and I'd laugh while scrubbing the dishes. I'd vacuum the living room, and he'd dust Mom's old record player, the one she loved spinning Fleetwood Mac on. Some nights, we'd sit in the kitchen, crying over coffee mugs, not saying much. Other nights, we'd watch cheesy action movies, sharing a bowl of popcorn, pretending we were okay. We weren't, but we tried. Then Karen came along. It was a year after Mom's funeral at a neighborhood cookout in Aurora. She showed up with her perfect nails, her too bright smile, and her 2 kids, Mia, 16, all attitude and lip gloss, and Ethan, 14, quiet, always glued to his phone. Dad introduced her like she was a prize, his voice nervous, but eager. Sophia, this is Karen. She's special. I didn't like her eyes, the way they scanned me like I was a math problem she needed to solve. But I smiled because Dad was smiling and I hadn't seen him smile in so long. At first, Karen played nice. She'd compliment my hair, ask about my classes at community college, offer to fold my laundry. I thought maybe she was trying to fit in, to be a bridge between me and Dad's grief. But it was a lie, a slow poison. She started small, rearranging the living room furniture, saying it needed a woman's touch. Mom's favorite armchair, the one she'd read me bedtime stories in, ended up in the garage, covered with a tarp. I found it there one day, gathering dust, and my stomach twisted. Then the photos started disappearing. Mom's picture, her laughing at a 4th of July picnic, her holding me as a baby, her trying to look brave during chemo, vanished from the walls, one by one. I'd find them in drawers, shoved in shoeboxes, or worse, in the trash. When I asked Karen about it, she'd blink, all innocent. Oh, Sophia, I thought we agreed to freshen things up. Your mom wouldn't want this house to feel like a shrine, would she? She always said that your mom wouldn't want, like she knew her. Like she had any right to speak her name. 3 months ago, I came home from a late shift and found Mom's photo album gone. It was the one with our family trips to Estes Park, my birthday parties, her selfies with that goofy grin. I tore the house apart looking for it. Karen swore she hadn't touched it, but I found it in a trash bag in the garage, soaked in coffee grounds, the edges curling. I sat on the cold concrete floor, holding it, tears dripping onto the plastic sleeves. That's when I knew. Karen wasn't just erasing Mom. She was erasing me. Back in the park, I clutched the quilt tighter, the fabric soft under my fingers. Karen's voice echoed in my head, her fake sweetness from the porch. Time to move on. Move on from what? From Mom? From the house we'd painted together, the garden she'd planted? From the life Dad and I had fought to keep after she was gone? I looked down at the journal, Mom's words staring back at me. She'd always told me I was stronger than I knew. I didn't feel strong, not then, sitting alone in the dark, my life dumped on the lawn like trash. But something shifted. A spark, small but stubborn, lit up inside me. I reached into my backpack and pulled out the envelope my grandma had given me 2 months ago after a Sunday lunch in Boulder. Don't open this until your 20th birthday, she'd said, her voice firm. Your mom wanted you to have it. I'd tucked it away, forgotten it. Now my fingers trembled as I held it, Mom's handwriting on the front, Sophia, bold and alive. Whatever was inside, it was hers. It was mine. The park was quiet now, the Denver evening settling into a soft hum of crickets and distant traffic. I sat on the bench, the oak tree's shadow stretching across the grass, Mom's quilt draped over my legs. My hands shook as I held the envelope, my name Sophia written in Mom's bold, slanted handwriting. It felt alive, like she was right there, whispering to me. My phone buzzed again, Ryan's name flashing, but I couldn't deal with that now. I needed to know what Mom had left me. I tore the envelope open, careful not to rip her writing. Inside were three things: a folded letter, a thick document with legal jargon, and a small silver key, cold against my palm. I started with the letter, unfolding it slowly, my breath catching. Mom's words spilled across the page, steady and clear, like she'd known exactly what I'd need to hear. Sophia, my light, it began. If you're reading this, I'm not there to fight for you. But I made sure you can fight for yourself. This house, our home on Maple Street, doesn't belong to Karen. It doesn't belong to your dad. It's yours starting today, your 20th birthday. The document is a trust agreement. Talk to Aunt Laura. She'll know what to do. I love you always, Mom. I read it again, then a third time, the words blurring as tears welled up. The house was mine. Mine. Not Karen's, with her wine glasses and fake smiles. Not Dad's, with his silence and surrender. Mom had seen this coming, somehow, and she'd built a shield for me. I clutched the letter, the paper crinkling, and looked at the document. It was dense, full of terms I didn't fully understand, but one line stood out, bold and unmistakable. Beneficiary, Sophia Marie Thompson, effective upon her 20th birthday. The key glinted in my hand, its purpose a mystery. I tucked it into my pocket, my heart pounding, a mix of hope and fear swirling inside me. Karen thought she'd won, throwing my life onto the lawn like it was nothing. She had no idea what was coming. Neither did I. Not really, but I wasn't alone. Mom was still here, in her words, in this plan she'd left behind. I pulled out my phone and dialed Aunt Laura, my mom's sister, who lived an hour away in Boulder. She answered on the second ring, her voice sharp but warm. Sophia? You okay? I opened the envelope, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom left me the house. A pause, then a soft exhale. Good. She wanted you to have it. She kicked me out, I blurted. Karen. On my birthday. My stuff's all over the lawn. Another pause, longer this time. That woman, Laura muttered, her voice tight. Listen to me, Sophia. You go back there. No yelling, no crying. You show her the papers and tell her she has 30 days to get out. No more, no less. Your mom made sure you could do this. I swallowed, my throat dry. Could I? Karen's smirk flashed in my mind, her voice dripping with venom. But Mom's letter felt heavy in my hand, like an anchor. Okay, I said. I'll do it. Call me when it's done, Laura said. I've got your back. I hung up, staring at the trust document, my name in black ink. The park felt smaller now, the weight of Mom's gift pulling me upright. I stood, folding the quilt, and took a deep breath. It was time to go home. I walked back to the house on Maple Street, the Denver dusk settling around me, streetlights flickering on. Mom's quilt was slung over my shoulder, the trust document tucked safely in my backpack, the silver key heavy in my pocket. My heart pounded, but my steps were steady. Aunt Laura's words echoed in my head. No yelling, no crying. Just the truth. My stuff was still scattered across the lawn, jeans and notebooks soaked from the evening dew. I stepped over them, my sneakers silent on the gravel, and walked through the open front door like I'd never left. The living room smelled like Karen's perfume, cloying and sharp, like overripe peaches. Mia was sprawled on the couch, scrolling on her phone, legs draped over the armrest like she owned every inch of the place. She glanced up, smirked, then looked away. I ignored her, my eyes fixed on the kitchen doorway. Karen was there, pouring another glass of wine, her movements slow, deliberate. She turned when she heard me, one eyebrow raised, like I was a stray dog wandering in. Well, she said, her voice dripping with mock surprise. Look who's back. I didn't flinch. I reached into my backpack, pulled out the trust document, and dropped it on the counter between us. The paper landed with a soft thud, the sound louder than it should have been in the quiet house. "This," I said, my voice steady, "proves this house isn't yours. It's mine. Mom set up a trust. It transferred to me today on my 20th birthday." Karen laughed, a short, sharp bark, and picked up the paper, her eyes scanning the page. Her smile twitched, then faded, like a candle flickering out. "What is this nonsense?" she snapped, her voice losing its sweetness. "This can't be legal." "It is," I said, crossing my arms. "And Laura's the trustee. You have 30 days to leave." She stared at me, her lips parting, but before she could speak, Dad walked in from the garage, wiping his hands on a rag. He froze, looking between us, his face pale under the kitchen light. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Karen shoved the document in his face, her hand trembling. "Your daughter thinks she owns the house, David. Tell her she's out of her mind." Dad took the paper, his eyes darting across the words. His shoulders slumped, like the weight of it was too much. "Sophia," he said, not looking at me. "What is this? Did you know you signed it?" I asked, stepping closer. "Mom had you sign it before she died. It's a trust. For me." He blinked, his mouth opening, then closing. I thought it was part of her will," he muttered. "Something to take care of you, just in case." "In case what?" I said, my voice sharp. "In case you married someone who'd kick me out on my birthday?" "Sophia, please," he started, but I cut him off. "No," I said. "You let her do this. You let her throw my life out there like trash." Karen slammed her wine glass on the counter, the liquid sloshing over the rim. "This is ridiculous," she hissed. "We've lived here for 2 years. You can't just kick us out." "I can," I said, meeting her glare. "And I will." Mia stormed in from the living room, her phone still in her hand. "Are you serious?" she snapped. "You think you can waltz in here and act like you run everything?" "I don't think," I said, my voice low, steady. "I know." Karen snatched the paper back, her eyes burning. "This isn't over," she said. "I'm calling my lawyer." "Go ahead," I said. "You've got 30 days. She glared at me, her face twisted with rage, but I didn't back down. I turned and headed upstairs to my roomy room and slammed the door behind me. The walls were still the soft blue mom and I had picked out when I was 15, but the shelves were bare, the bed stripped. I sat on the mattress, my hands shaking, not with fear, but with something new. Strength. This was my house, and I was taking it back. The morning light filtered through the blinds of my room on Maple Street, painting faint stripes across the bare mattress. I hadn't slept much, my mind replaying the showdown with Karen, her venomous glare, Dad's defeated silence. The trust document sat on my desk, a quiet promise from Mom. I was still shaking, but it wasn't just nerves anymore. It was purpose. I texted Aunt Laura. I told her. 30 days. They're furious. Her reply came fast. Good. I'll be there by 10. We'll go over everything. Laura arrived right on time, striding into the house in Denver without knocking, her sunglasses perched on her head, a brown folder tucked under her arm. She looked like she was ready for war, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. "Morning, Sophia," she said, giving me a quick nod. "Where's the Queen?" "Living room," I said. "On the phone, as usual." Laura smirked. Perfect. She marched in, and I followed, my heart thudding. Karen was mid-sentence, her voice syrupy, trying to charm whoever was on the other end. She froze when she saw Laura, muttering, "I'll call you back," before hanging up. "What are you doing here?" she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "Making sure Sophia doesn't get buried under your garbage," Laura said, dropping the folder on the coffee table. "Let's talk facts." She opened it, pulling out a notarized copy of the trust and a letter from Mom's estate lawyer. "This house belongs to Sophia. Emily set it up before she died. David, you signed it 6 months before she passed. Your signature's right here." She pointed to the line, her voice calm but unyielding. Dad wandered in, looking like he hadn't slept in days, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "Laura," he said, "maybe we can sit down and—" "No need," Laura cut him off. "This isn't a negotiation. Karen, you've got 30 days to pack up and leave. After that, we file for eviction." Karen's face twisted, her cheeks flushing red. "You can't do this," she said, her voice rising. "We've built a life here." "You're a guest," Laura said, her tone ice-cold. "And your invitation's expired." Mia, who'd been lurking in the hallway, stepped forward, arms crossed. "What about us?" she said, her voice sharp. "We go to school here. We have lives." "You should have thought of that before treating Sophia like dirt," Laura snapped. "Actions have consequences." Dad sat on the edge of the couch, his hands gripping his knees. "I didn't think it'd come to this," he said, his voice barely audible. "You let it," I said, my words quiet but heavy. "You watched it happen." He looked at me, his eyes tired, but said nothing. Laura handed me the folder. "Keep this safe," she said. "If they try anything, call me." Karen stood, trembling, her wine glass forgotten on the table. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "This isn't over." Laura smiled, sharp and fearless. "Oh, honey, it's just getting started." Later that day, I sat in my room with Ryan, my best friend since middle school. He'd shown up with 2 energy drinks and his laptop, ready to help. We'd gone to a bank in Aurora earlier, using the silver key to open a safe deposit box Mom had left. Inside was a thick file, a USB drive, and a sealed envelope with my name. Now, we plugged the USB into Ryan's laptop, the screen casting a pale glow across the bare walls. The files were a goldmine. Emails between Karen and Dad, starting months before Mom died. One made my stomach churn. "She's not going to make it past spring," Dad wrote. "I can't keep waiting, Karen. If we're doing this, it's now." Her reply was worse. "Talk to the doctor, David. You know what needs to happen. She's too stubborn to let go." I stared at the screen, my hands cold. "She pushed him," I whispered, "to change Mom's care." Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. And he listened. The envelope held a recording, Mom's voice crackling through the laptop's speakers. "Sophia, if you're hearing this, they tried to erase me. I knew Karen was trouble the moment I saw how your dad looked at her. I didn't want to believe he'd betray me, but I couldn't leave you with nothing. The trust is yours. Laura knows. Don't let them break you." I closed my eyes, her voice wrapping around me like a hug. Ryan put a hand on my shoulder. "Your mom was a badass," he said. "She knew." "Yeah," I said, my voice thick. "She did." I looked at the files, the recording, the truth Mom had left behind. Karen thought she could bury me. She was wrong. This was my fight now, and I was just getting started. The house on Maple Street felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with unspoken rage. Karen refused to leave, her defiance louder than any words. She didn't pack, didn't even pretend to. Instead, she prowled the Denver house like she still owned it, leaving passive-aggressive notes on the fridge. "Clean up your mess, Sophia." She'd blast pop music at midnight, the bass rattling my bedroom walls. I started locking my door, not trusting her or Mia to stay out. One morning, I came downstairs to find the kitchen trashed. Dishes piled in the sink, crusted with dried food. Cereal scattered across the counter, crunching under my sneakers. A carton of milk had been poured out, dripping onto the floor, pooling like a taunt. Mia stood by the fridge, arms crossed, chewing gum with a smirk. "Oops," she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. "Guess you'll have to clean that up, since this is your house now, right?" I stared at her, my hands curling into fists. "Not my problem," I said, turning away, refusing to give her the reaction she wanted. She huffed, muttering something under her breath, and stomped out. I didn't clean it. Let Karen deal with her daughter's tantrum. Later that day, I found a framed photo of Mom in the hallway, one of the last we took together at a park in Boulder. We were laughing, her arm around me, the sun in her hair. Now, the glass was shattered, the frame bent, lying on the floor like it had been kicked. Ethan came out of his room, saw it, and froze. "I didn't mean to," he said quickly, his voice low. "I bumped it. I swear." I looked at him, his eyes wide, guilty. "I believe you," I said. "But tell Mia to stop acting like a toddler." He nodded, looking at the floor. "She's just mad," he said. "She thinks you're ruining everything." "I'm fixing what she had no right to break," I said, picking up the photo, brushing glass off Mom's face. "Big difference." Ethan hesitated, then slipped back into his room, the door clicking shut. I took the photo to my room, wrapping it in Mom's quilt. Karen and Mia were testing me, pushing to see if I'd crack. They didn't know I was done bending. That night, I sat in the garage with Ryan, the air cool and musty, Mom's old wardrobe shoved in a corner. We were digging through more files from the safe deposit box, Ryan's laptop glowing on a rickety table. He scrolled through emails from Dad's old account, his brow furrowed. "Look at this," he said, pointing to a chain from 3 months before Mom died. "Karen," Dad had written, "she's not getting better. You said we'd be together by Christmas." Her reply was cold. "Do what you need to, David. Talk to the doctor. You know she's holding on too long." I leaned back, goosebumps prickling my arms. "She pushed him," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "To rush Mom's care." Ryan nodded, his eyes dark. "And he went along with it." I stared at the screen, Mom's recording echoing in my mind, her voice so clear, so scared not of dying, but of leaving me with them. "She trusted him," I said, my throat tight. "And he betrayed her." Ryan looked at me, his voice soft. "You're not him, Sophia. You're fighting for her." "I know," I said, my jaw clenched. I stood, pacing the garage, the concrete cold under my socks. Karen wasn't just stealing my home. She'd stolen Mom's final months, Dad's loyalty, my peace. Every email, every note she left, every smirk from Myatt was all a game to her. But I wasn't playing. I called Aunt Laura the next morning, telling her about the emails, the photo, the kitchen. "They're trying to wear me down," I said. "Let them try," she said, her voice sharp. "Keep everything, every note, every email. We're building a case. Stay focused." I hung up, Mom's quilt folded on my bed, the trust document locked in my desk. Karen could trash the house, Mia could break every photo, but they couldn't break me. Not anymore. I was ready for whatever came next. The garage was dim, the single bulb overhead casting shadows across Mom's old wardrobe, now shoved against the wall like a forgotten relic. I sat on a folding chair, the cold seeping through my jeans, while Ryan hunched over his laptop, the screen's glow lighting up his face. We'd been digging through the safe deposit box files for hours, piecing together the puzzle Mom had left. The house on Maple Street was quiet upstairs, but the tension lingered, like a storm waiting to break. Karen's notes still littered the fridge, Mia's music still blared at odd hours, and Ethan's silence still hung heavy. But I wasn't backing down. Ryan clicked through another folder on the USB drive, his fingers pausing. "Sophia," he said, his voice low, urgent. "You need to see this." I leaned over, my heart picking up speed. It was a spreadsheet, meticulously organized, tracking small transfers from Dad's bank account to one in Karen's name. $100 here, $300 there, sometimes $500, stretching back over a year. The total at the bottom made my breath catch. $15,000, siphoned away, bit by bit. "She stole from him," I said, my voice shaking, not with fear but with fury. All this time, she was draining him. Ryan nodded, scrolling to another file, this one an email chain. The subject line was blank, but the words inside were damning. Karen had written to some Ania realtor, from the looks of it 6 months ago. "Once the girl's out, we can list the house," she typed. "David's on board." He just needs a push. My stomach churned. She'd planned to sell my home, Mom's home, after kicking me to the curb on my birthday. She was going to take everything, I said, my hands clenching into fists. Everything Mom built. Ryan looked at me, his eyes steady. She didn't count on you fighting back. I stood, pacing the garage, my sneakers scuffing the concrete. The emails, the spreadsheet, Mom's recording, they weren't just evidence. They were a map of Karen's betrayal, laid out in cold, hard data. She hadn't just erased Mom's memory or pushed me out. She'd manipulated Dad, bled him dry, and plotted to profit from our pain. I thought of Mom's voice on the recording, her fear not for herself, but for me. She'd known Karen was dangerous, and she'd made sure I could stop her. The next morning, I printed everything, the emails, the bank transfers, the realtor correspondence. I stuffed them into a folder and drove to a small law office in downtown Denver, recommended by Aunt Laura. The lawyer, Ms. Carter, sat behind a cluttered desk, a wilting plant in the corner. She flipped through the folder, her eyebrows climbing higher with each page. "This is solid," she said, peering over her glasses. "You've got enough here for an eviction and a strong case for financial fraud." "I want both," I said, my voice firm, though my hands trembled under the table. "She doesn't get to walk away from this." Ms. Carter nodded, jotting notes. "This could get messy," she said. "Fraud charges are serious. Are you sure you're ready?" "They made it messy," I said, thinking of my stuff on the lawn, Mom's photo shattered in the hallway. "They threw my life out like trash. I'm just taking it back." She gave me a small, approving smile. "All right, Sophia. Let's get to work." Back at the house, Karen was in the backyard, yelling into her phone, a cigarette dangling from her fingers. Mia was in the living room, filming herself in front of a mirror, probably for some social media post. Ethan was nowhere in sight, probably hiding in his room. I walked past them all, my folder tucked under my arm, and headed upstairs. The blue walls of my room felt like a sanctuary, even stripped bare. I locked the door and sat at my desk, spreading out the papers. That night, I left a copy of the eviction notice on the kitchen counter, the words stark against the white paper. "Karen Mitchell, you are hereby notified to vacate the premises within 30 days. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The truth was louder than any argument. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Karen's voice from the kitchen, sharp and frantic, probably on the phone with another lawyer. Let her try. She could call every attorney in Colorado. The facts were on my side, and Mom's plan was airtight. I closed my bedroom door, the lock clicking softly. The war wasn't over, but I was winning. And Karen had no idea how much deeper this was about to go. The courtroom in downtown Denver was colder than I expected, not just the air but the atmosphere, stiff and heavy, like everyone was holding their breath. I sat at the plaintiff's table, gripping the folder of documents, my knuckles white. Aunt Laura stood behind me, arms crossed, her eyes sharp as knives. Ryan had offered to come, but I told him no. This was something I needed to face alone. The wooden benches creaked as people settled in, their whispers buzzing like static. I kept my gaze forward, Mom's letter tucked in my pocket, her words a quiet strength. Karen swept in 10 minutes late, wearing a tight black dress and oversized sunglasses, like she was starring in a bad soap opera. Mia trailed behind, chewing gum, her glare slicing through me like I'd stolen her phone. Dad was last, slipping into the back row alone, his shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on the floor. He didn't sit with them. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I didn't have time to wonder. The judge entered, a tall woman with gray hair and a no-nonsense stare. We all stood, then sat, and the room fell silent. My lawyer, Ms. Carter, stood, her voice clear and steady. "Your Honor," she began, "my client, Sophia Thompson, is the legal owner of the property on Maple Street, as outlined in a trust established by her late mother, Emily Thompson. The trust took effect on Sophia's 20th birthday. The defendant, Karen Mitchell, was given 30 days to vacate but has refused. She laid out the timeline: Mom's death, the trust's activation, the eviction notice, Karen's defiance. Then she turned to the heavier evidence. We also have reason to believe the defendant engaged in financial fraud and coercion during Emily Thompson's final months. Ms. Carter presented the folder: emails between Karen and Dad, bank transfers totaling $15,000, a doctor's note confirming Mom's care plan was altered without her full consent, and Mom's recording. The judge listened as Mom's voice filled the room, calm but resolute. I knew Karen was dangerous. I couldn't leave Sophia with nothing. The words hung in the air, unshakable. I swallowed hard, my throat tight, feeling Mom right there with me. The judge looked at Karen, her expression unreadable. Ms. Mitchell, do you have a response to these accusations? Karen stood, smoothing her dress, her sunglasses now perched on her head. Your Honor, she said, her voice sugary, this is a personal vendetta. Sophia has been hostile since I married her father. She's twisting the truth. That recording, who knows when it was made? Or if it's even real. Ms. Carter didn't flinch. The recording's metadata confirms its date, Your Honor. The doctor's statement verifies the care plan changes were not fully authorized. Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. I was supporting my husband, she said. We were grieving. I didn't force anyone to do anything. And the money? The judge asked, her tone sharp. The transfers from Mr. Thompson's account to yours? Karen hesitated, her fingers twitching. Those were for household expenses. We agreed on it. Suddenly, Dad stood, his chair scraping the floor. Every head turned. That's not true, he said, his voice low but clear. I didn't agree to any of it. Karen said she'd handle the bills. I didn't know she was moving money to her own account. Karen whipped around, her face paling. David, what are you doing? He looked at her, then at me, his eyes hollow. I'm telling the truth, he said. The judge nodded, her pen scratching notes. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mia started whispering loudly to Karen, and the judge's eyes snapped to her. Young lady, she said, if you can't stay quiet, you'll need to leave. Mia slumped back, scowling. Ms. Carter pressed forward. Your Honor, my client has done everything to resolve this peacefully. The defendant's refusal leaves us no choice but to seek formal eviction. The judge reviewed the papers, her silence stretching long. Finally, she looked up. The trust is valid. The property transfer is clear. The eviction notice is lawful. The financial documents and recording raise concerns that may warrant further investigation. Karen's mouth fell open, but the judge continued. I'm issuing an eviction order. The defendant has 72 hours to vacate the premises. Any resistance will involve legal enforcement. I exhaled, my shoulders loosening, not realizing I'd been holding my breath. Karen erupted. This is outrageous, she shouted. That house is mine. I made it a home. The judge banged her gavel once, sharp and final. You're dismissed, Ms. Mitchell. Karen stormed out, Mia scrambling after her, still muttering about unfairness. I stood, turning to Dad. He looked at me, his eyes carrying a weight I couldn't name. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking. You could have stopped this, I said, clutching the folder. You chose her. He nodded, slow and heavy. I know. I walked past him, out of the courtroom, Laura at my side. The fight was over, but the victory felt raw, like a bruise. I'd won the house. Now I had to make it mine again. I drove back to Maple Street under a gray Denver sky, the courtroom's echo still ringing in my ears. The house looked the sammered brick, white shutters, the lawn still littered with my belongings, now soggy from an afternoon drizzle. But it felt different, like the air had shifted. Karen's car was gone when I pulled into the driveway. The front door was ajar, creaking in the breeze. I stepped inside, my sneakers quiet on the hardwood, and the silence hit me hard. The war was over, but it left scars. Upstairs, Mia's room was a mess, clothes and makeup strewn across the floor, like she'd left in a tantrum. Ethan's room was emptier, the bed neatly made, but a drawer still held crumpled papers. I found a small canvas bag on the desk, stuffed with a few of my things: a dog-eared poetry book, the necklace Mom gave me for my 16th birthday, my favorite mug with a chipped handle. A note was taped to it in Ethan's messy scrawl. "Sorry for everything. Found these in my stuff." I tucked the note in my pocket, a flicker of gratitude cutting through the ache. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled faintly of Karen's perfume, but her wine glasses were gone. The fridge was bare, no more of her passive-aggressive notes. I sat at the table, Mom's quilt draped over my shoulders, and let the quiet sink in. It wasn't peace, not yet. It was a bruise, tender and raw. This was my house now, but it didn't feel like home. Not without Mom's laughter, her records spinning, her roses blooming in the backyard. I decided to start fresh. Aunt Laura offered to hire painters, but I shook my head. "I need to do this," I told her. So I bought cans of paint from a hardware store in Aurora, choosing a deep, warm green, nothing like the soft blue Mom and I had picked when I was 15, but something new, something mine. I spent the next day rolling paint over the living room walls, the rhythmic motion grounding me. Each stroke felt like erasing Karen's presence, her fake smiles, her chaos. Laura stopped by, leaning in the doorway with a coffee mug, her eyes glinting with amusement. "You missed a spot," she said, pointing to a perfectly painted corner. "Liar," I said, grinning, paint speckling my jeans. She laughed, stepping inside. "Maybe, but I like watching you work." I dipped the roller back in, the green spreading smooth and even. "It feels good," I said, like I'm scrubbing them out of the walls. We spent the afternoon unpacking boxes I hadn't touched in years, ones Karen had banished to the garage. Old notebooks filled with my teenage poetry, sketches of Mom's garden, little notes she'd left in my lunch bags. I found a photo of us at a beach in Grand Lake, her in a sun hat, me holding a melting ice cream cone, both of us laughing. I held it, my throat tight, and Laura sat beside me on the floor. "She'd be proud," she said, her voice soft. "I hope so," I said, tracing Mom's smile. "She would be," Laura said, squeezing my shoulder. That evening, I hung the photo on the freshly painted wall, its frame still bent from Mia's tantrum, but sturdy enough. I stepped back, the green walls glowing under the lamplight. The house was starting to feel like mine again, one room at a time. I walked to the backyard, where Mom's rose bushes stood wild and overgrown, still blooming despite everything. I knelt beside them, the dirt cool under my fingers, and pulled a few weeds. The stars were coming out, faint against the city glow. I thought of Mom's letter, her voice in the recording, her trust in me. She hadn't just left me a house. She'd left me a way to fight, to reclaim what was mine. I stood, brushing soil from my hands, and looked at the house, its windows catching the last of the dusk. Karen was gone. Mia was gone. Ethan had made his peace. Dad was a question mark, but that was for another day. For now, I had the Izumi home, my strength, my mother's love painted into every wall. The Denver evening was cool, the sky turning a soft orange behind the trees as I sat on the back porch of the house on Maple Street. Ryan sprawled beside me, his hands behind his head, a half-empty soda can at his feet. Mom's garden stretched before us, wild and untamed, but her roses still bloomed, their petals catching the fading light. The house was quiet now, the green walls inside fresh and clean, my photos and sketches hung where Karen's chaos used to reign. It was mine, truly mine, but the victory felt bittersweet, like a song in a minor key. My phone buzzed earlier that day, a text from Dad. "Can I see you? Just to talk." I stared at it for a long time before replying. Noon. 15 minutes. That's it. He showed up on time, knocking once, waiting like a stranger. I opened the door, stepping aside without a word. He looked around the living room, his eyes lingering on the new paint. "You did this?" he asked, his voice tentative. "Yeah," I said, staying by the kitchen counter, arms crossed. "Looks good." He nodded, sitting at the table, his hands clasped tight. "I moved to a small place in Arvada," he said. "Not much, but it's mine." I didn't respond, and he cleared his throat. "I'm in therapy now, Sophia. Trying to figure out why I let everything go so wrong." I leaned against the counter, my jaw tight. "You shouldn't have let it happen," I said. "You helped her. You let her erase Mom, erase me." "I know," he said, his voice cracking. "I was weak. I couldn't handle being alone after your mom died." "You were a coward," I said, the words sharp but steady. He flinched, looking down at his hands. "I was," he whispered. We sat in silence, the clock ticking softly. "I loved your mom," he said, almost to himself. "Not enough," I said. He didn't argue, just nodded, his eyes wet. "I don't hate you," I said finally, "but I don't trust you. And I don't want you in my life right now." He stood, his shoulders heavy. "I get it," he said. At the door, he paused. "If you ever change your mind." I said nothing. He left, the door clicking shut. I exhaled, the weight of his absence settling in. Now, on the porch with Ryan, I ran my fingers over the quilt draped across my lap. "Ever thought about selling?" he asked, his voice light but curious. I shook my head. "This house is mine. I'm not running from it." He grinned. "Good." He leaned back, staring at the sky. "You know, for a girl kicked out on her birthday, you came back like a hurricane." I smiled, small but real. Had to. Later that night, alone in my room, I pulled out Mom's letter, the one from the envelope. I hadn't read the last part before, too raw to finish. Now, my hands steady, I unfolded it. "Let them try to break you," she wrote. "Everything built on lies will crumble against the truth. You owe no one your silence, your comfort, your forgiveness. Own your name, Sophia. Own your story. Never let them make you small." I folded it carefully, placing it in my desk drawer beside Ethan's note. Then I walked barefoot to the backyard, the grass cool under my feet. The stars were bright now, piercing the Denver night. I knelt by Mom's roses, pulling a few stray weeds, the dirt grounding me. "You didn't just leave me a house," I whispered, my voice soft but sure. "You left me justice." I stood, brushing soil from my hands, my heart steady. The house glowed behind me, its windows warm with light. Karen's shadow was gone. Dad's choices couldn't touch me anymore. I was Sophia Thompson, daughter of Emily, keeper of this home, this truth. The roses swayed in the breeze, and I smiled, knowing Mom was with me, in every bloom, every wall, every step I took. I wasn't just rebuilding a house. I was rebuilding myself. And I was just getting started.